My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
Hey, how are you? My name is Ben, and I am a movie buff. I am one part video game nerd, one part comic book nerd, but all parts movie nerd.
Our mission is to bring nerd culture to the masses
by putting it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, TV, manga, comic books, or is that graphic novels, cartoons, whoops, that's animation, Disney, Star Wars, Dragon Ball Z, Pokemon, and Digimon, and Mighty Morphin, Power Rangers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Nintendo, Cinematic Universes, Marvel, DC, Justice League, is Batman, Leagues with Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, Avengers, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Loki, Spider-Man, and Hulk, and Logan, X-Men, Thunders, Allen, Galaxy Guardians, Star Trek, Trick, Trick, Card, and Janeway, Nerds and Geeks come gather around and join them in the Big Bat Jar.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd culture under the microscope. Ben, the movie buff, you were working last night on a movie.
I was.
And you told me it started to rain.
It did, yeah. We got lucky for the first half of the day, for the first half of the night, I guess. There was no rain, and then we had lunch, and then after everyone was done from lunch and trying to head back to set, we got hit with a lot of rain and some lightning as well. So, yeah, that put a bit of a damper on our day, pun intended, I guess.
If you eat a meal in the middle of the night, you call it lunch?
We do, yeah, because it's our lunch. If we start our day at 6 o'clock, like p.m., 1800, our first meal is our breakfast, and then when we break 6 hours afterwards, yes, it's our lunch.
That can't work. A meal between supper and breakfast has to be breakfast, doesn't it?
It works. It works in film. That's how. And then, of course, if you go, we had our dinner at 6 a.m. this morning, which of course was not really. It was and wasn't dinner because it was McDonald's breakfast sandwiches. So. But it's our dinner, right? Because it's the end of our day.
Is that the catering on this job is McDonald's?
For dinner sometimes, yeah. But we do have catering for like other snacks and lunch. It's just, at the end of the day when we're not sure, like, are we going a bit longer or whatnot, they just get something quick and easy like McDonald's.
What is the best piece of food that you've ever had on a set?
Oh, man. Wow.
Is that a hard question to ask?
It is. No, I think I have a few answers here because remember when you work in film, yes, sometimes you get takeout, like they'll just get you that as a quick and easy thing, but typically the lunches are all catered. Well, I know for one, this one catering company, they have kind of a cool buffet style lunch sometimes where they have, instead of like lasagna, garlic bread, and a Caesar salad, they'll have like 10 different things to choose from. So you can have like 4 or 5 different things, or like you can change it up how you want. They make these meatballs, I'm pretty sure like Swedish meatballs. They are so good. I probably have like 10 to 15 every time I have lunch there. But yeah, it is a hard question because there's so many good food I've had on set.
Now, I'm going to assume that because you're filming the stuff here in Ottawa, it's probably a situation where they're masking the environment to look like it's an American city.
Yes, correct.
So are you working with American actors, or are these Canadian actors trying to put on American accents?
I think it's a bit of a mix from what I can tell. And I mean, of course, given that I signed a contract. But from what I understand, I'm pretty sure our number one, which is like our main cast member, I'm pretty sure she's from the States. I think with films like these, you kind of get people from here, there, and everywhere, right? So the people that in like the top 5 slots could be American.
Is that what that's called?
Exactly, yeah. So like your number one. So for example, like something like Braveheart, Mel Gibson would have been the number one because he was William Wallace in Braveheart, right? So, but then of course the top 5 cast members are also like are big cast members that have a big part of the story. So yeah, they could be from America, they could be from Vancouver, from Toronto, and then sometimes the smaller roles we might give to people like local actors. But it depends. So it can be a mix.
Well, so you were working overnight. So if anyone senses a hint of exhaustion in Ben the Movie Buff's voice, it's not because he's exhausted with this conversation or being in my presence. Maybe it is.
Well, actually, funny you should mention that. Yeah, that's right. It's just, I'm going off of 3.5 hours of sleep. I finished at 7:30 this morning. But of course, I had to get home and wake up my little baby boy to, change his diaper and spend a few minutes with him before I went to bed. So I didn't get to bed until about 8:30 this morning. So
So you're just raring to go.
Yeah, raring to go. Let's do this.
So today we're talking about something that was pulled out of the jar last week. I don't think this is something someone emailed us about, but somehow it ended up in the jar anyway. Mm-hmm. We're talking about movies that are based on Disney attractions. So we're getting into Disney theme parks for really the first time on the show.
Yeah, that's right. Huh?
And just to be clear, we're not talking about any movie that's based on any attraction at a theme park, because there are now, Avatar is the
Right.
thing at Walt Disney World.
Yep.
And Star Wars is now a thing at Disney World. And there's an Indiana Jones attraction at one of the
Yep.
Disney parks. So we're not talking about just movies that have attractions at Disney parks.
Yep.
What we're talking about are movies that were made based on Disney park attractions.
Yep.
Which means that the source material for the movie was indeed a theme park attraction at any Disney park. It can be Disneyland, Disney World, Disney whatever. Now, I got to ask Ben the Movie Buff, have you ever been to a Disney theme park before?
Yes, when I was, I think once or twice, I've gone to Disney World in Orlando, Florida. And yeah, I remember it being amazing. Obviously, there's, you're tired at the end of the day because there's a lot of walking around and waiting in line for rides. Like I remember going on a Dumbo ride where I waited in line for an hour and a half and the ride itself is like 60 seconds. So certain things like that, like there's a lot of waiting involved, but yeah, you still kind of get that sense of magic and wonder at Disney World. So I'd love to go to Disneyland one day. But yeah, I've definitely been to Disney World and I think also to Epcot also. So maybe just those two. I'm not sure if I've been to Animal Kingdom.
Yeah, because I think there's 5 parks at Disney World in Orlando.
Yeah.
Whereas in California, it's just Disneyland, and then they have like Disney's California Adventure, which is like a separate thing.
Right. Yeah.
I myself have been to Disney World once, and it was only in Magic Kingdom.
Okay.
It was kind of like a one day we were in and out
Yeah.
sort of thing. So I haven't been to any of the other Disney parks. To be honest, when I've been to Florida, I actually go to Universal
Yeah, no, me too. Yep.
instead, just because, first of all, it's more movie focused.
Yes.
And also, I just find it's less busy.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and you still get the same kind of I mean, not exactly the same as Disney, but you still get that same sense of fun and wonder of going to a theme park. And yeah, when it's a little less busy, I can totally understand the allure to that.
Yeah, I'm basically committed at this point. I'm not going to go back to Disney theme parks until I have children.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
You'd want your son to be old enough to know what's going on. So
Absolutely, yeah. So
You
we
got
probably
a few
wait
years.
a few years. But even like my aunt and uncle, they live in Orlando, and yeah, they were telling me like prices of how much it costs to get into like Disney World and the other parks. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But as as the lawyer said in Jurassic Park, right? We can ask for any price and people will come. People will pay money, and that's the same for Disney World.
Yeah, I think I went to Universal Studios Orlando last February.
Yeah.
I think one day, one ticket, one park was like 160 Canadian. Wow. And that's, of course, just to get in. You still have
Yeah.
to wait in line for all the attractions and any food you eat. Anyway, it ain't
Yeah,
cheap,
geez. Nope, that's right.
but that's okay.
Yeah.
So as we get into this, overall theme is that most of these movies are not very good.
Yeah.
And so I want to kind of just talk very briefly about this whole concept of a theme park serving as the source material for a movie. Mm-hmm. So Ben the Movie Buff, you work in the movie industry. You've seen all kinds of movies. Some of the most successful films of all time, like Avengers Endgame, are based on some pre-existing source material.
Yeah.
Directly, I should say. So like that's directly adapting Marvel Comics. But then you have like Avatar, which is the second highest grossing film of all time. Officially, it's original material. It's not directly based on any one source.
Yeah.
But you look at the story of Avatar and you can see its influences.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So from your experience as a film industry professional, we'll call you that.
Oh wow, thank you. I'm flattered.
Do you find movies are overall better when they're based on some kind of source material or when they're an original idea?
Oh wow, jeez. Talk about, I mean, we could probably dedicate a whole podcast to this one question. I guess at the end of the day, it just depends on the filmmaker and the creative team that are behind the film. Because I've seen either or. I've seen lots of adaptations that work really well because people that are making the movies are not trying to just do a quick cash grab. Like obviously Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings, for example. Here's a guy who clearly like had his A game there and put 110% in trying to make this the best it could be. And clearly it worked, right? Because of all of its success. And I mean, I think it's the best movie trilogy of all time easily. But then again, I think there is an allure for me at least, and I think to a lot of people when movies are not based on any are not based on a comic book or even like a video game or literature, because in that case, sometimes you kind of go into it and you're not 100% sure what to expect, right? When you go into a Marvel movie, even if it's dealing with characters that you've never met before, sometimes you still have kind of an idea of what it might be like because of the whole Marvel tone and style that they go for. Because like a lot of people will say that, yeah, a lot of the Marvel movies kind of feel the same. And while I still really like a lot of them, I can still see that. But take a movie like A Quiet Place, for example, where I heard about the idea and I'm like, okay, I got to see this movie. And there's no pre-existing, like A Quiet Place wasn't based on anything, although once again, some people say that there's some similarities to Bird Box, which was a movie that came out on Netflix last year, which I'm sure a lot of you already know, but was also based on a book that was written before they started working on A Quiet Place. So I guess sometimes it's just one of those like a happenstance that they had two similar ideas where like there's one thing that you can't do, and if you do it, you'll die. The threat will take you down. But I think there is an allure that's kind of hard to have with movies that are based on existing intellectual property, where you might have no idea what's about to happen, and that's kind of the surprise, and you hope that by the end of it will I guess in a way either change you or just make for a really cool cinematic experience. So I'm kind of like, it's a bit of both for me, to be completely honest, without rambling on about it for another 20 minutes, but I'd say both have their merits. Yeah, in our world where we have so many remakes, reboots, sequels, prequels and all that jazz, I do like seeing original films.
Now, does it strike you as odd that Disney or anybody would decide to take a theme park attraction and turn it into a movie?
So on the one hand, yeah, it does. When you think about, I understand why people would take comic books and make them into movies. I think it's pretty obvious why people would want to do that. Same thing for literature, because like they're both stories told in different ways, but we've seen that you can adapt them in an effective way for the screen. But of course, when it comes to these rides, you got to wonder, like, well, that's weird, because really, like, is there a story? Are there characters in this ride? And maybe in some cases, yes, there are. In some, I would imagine there's not. But when you think about it, I guess the cool thing that these rides have going for them is this sense of familiarity, right? And if if box office numbers have told us anything for a very long time, it's that people like familiarity, right? Even these whole like Disney remakes that we've been dealing with over the last few years, while a lot of people are not crazy about them, people complain in this and that, they still make a lot of money. Why? Because there's a sense of familiarity. And I think with these rides, well, I'm not sure. I don't know if I ever went on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I might have, but I think that familiarity still helps. That when you hear about a movie being made that's based on a theme park attraction from Disney World, as silly as that may sound, I can see a lot of people going like, wait, they're doing that? Well, how would that turn out? Like, I gotta wonder, right? And there's the familiarity that, like, what could they do with that in a movie? So I can imagine why they would take something as quick and maybe like with not that much basis for story or characters and turn it into a movie, because yeah, like you said, most of them aren't that good. But I think there is one exception to that rule, I would say, being Pirates of the Caribbean. But even then, yeah, they literally took just like a few little basics, but they still had to create this whole story and all these characters and whatnot. So I can see why they do it. It's one of those, it's like, it's crazy, but clearly it kind of works sometimes.
Yeah, because I would say these attractions are designed to give the theme park attendees an experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes to facilitate that, there is a story that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like thrust into the middle of this story that has to somehow be resolved in like at the most 2.5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been on a ride anywhere, whether it's a roller coaster or a water ride or whatever, that goes from maybe more than 4 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen with most roller coasters, typically like the setup or the story for the attraction is while you're waiting in line. There's like video screens or whatever, kind of like
right.
Informing you into whatever the circumstances are. Mm-hmm. You know, like the ride at Islands of Adventure in Orlando for the Hulk. It's a roller coaster, but the whole time you're walking through the lineup, it's set up like this gamma lab.
Yeah.
And they explain that the machine that you're using is helping him do a gamma radiation test on himself.
Yeah. And I think that's a great idea when you think about it, because, like, for one, people have to wait in line for a long time. So give them something to do, some sort of excitement. So I love that setup of getting you ready for the ride, so that once you get to the ride, there's a bit more anticipation, because now there's a little story. And even if, it's just a few lines here or there, it's still something to kind of attach to before before you get onto this ride. So yeah, I think that's a great idea because really at the end of the day, most of the time spent at a theme park, unless you go to like, I don't know, Canada's Wonderland in May while all the kids are still in school, like you're going to spend most of your day waiting in line.
Point.
Yep. So yeah, it makes sense that they want to have some entertainment, some extra stuff while you're waiting.
I think movies can also be very experiential.
Yeah.
Like I think of a movie like Dunkirk. That movie, there's really no plot to it. It's just showing you events that are happening, and it's all about the experience of the film. So the fact that theme parks in these specific rides are meant to create an experience for the participant.
Yeah.
I think there is a way in which the movies can somehow build off of that.
Yep.
But of course, not every movie can be Dunkirk.
Exactly, yeah. But it's funny you mentioned that because you'll notice sometimes, and I've even used this wording before as well, where even something like Avengers Endgame for me was an experience, right? I mean, it kind of, because of this whole build up with all these movies coming down and like everything is going to finish off with Endgame, more or less. It starts becoming less about like, oh, it was a great movie, I really liked it, and more talk about an experience, talk about, like all the people watching the movie and the people reacting to the movie and this and that, and just the way you felt and how afterwards, like I spent 4 hours looking up trivia and watching videos about like trying to understand more about the movie. So yeah, it was clearly something that affected me like before I saw the movie, during, and then afterwards.
I'm still learning new things about Endgame.
There's a lot to unpack in that movie for sure. So yeah, I hear you.
So before we get started talking about movies that have already come out, there are in fact 2 different movies in development right now.
Yes.
That are based on Disney rides. One that's going to come out next summer is Jungle Cruise.
Yes. Starring
The Rock and Emily Blunt.
Yep.
Both having starred in Disney films before.
Yep.
And I've never been on the Jungle Cruise ride, so I have no idea what to expect. Apparently, it's like going to be an Indiana Jones style movie, like the kind of like classic adventure.
Right. Yeah.
And it's going to have the exotic environment of being in the jungle. So I don't know. Are you excited to see that?
Kind of, yeah. There's something about the pairing of The Rock and Emily Blunt. I guess it's because even though like Emily Blunt's awesome, like we've seen that she can do like the kind of like sophisticated dramatic roles, but she can also kind of do the action roles too, like in Edge of Tomorrow, for example. But there's something about seeing that pairing that makes me wonder, how's this going to work out, right? Because sometimes we see actors working together before that we've never seen on screen. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I hope it does. But yeah, I will probably see it at some point. I get kind of an African Queen vibe from the movie because like it's been years since I've seen it. But Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn were in this movie called The African Queen, which I think had more to do with kind of adventure and less to do with big action set pieces. But of course, the two of them are like on a boat for most of the movie. So I can see there maybe being some kind of callbacks to that. But like you said, like it's still, I would imagine it feeling more like Indiana Jones and less like African Queen.
Okay, I guess I misspoke. So it turns out Jungle Cruise is the only attraction that's going to be a movie right now.
Oh, okay.
It turns out they ordered a pilot for a TV show for Big Thunder Mountain.
Oh, wow.
Back in 2013, but it didn't get picked up anymore. It was scrapped. So.
Okay, wow.
If Jungle Cruise takes off, we might be entering a new renaissance of Disney park attractions that are turned into movies.
Apparently. Jeez.
So we're just going to kind of go through each of these movies now. We're not going to try and rank them best to worst because, as you've already alluded to, Pirates of the Caribbean is the best one. But we'll save that for last.
Yeah, for sure.
Because we'll probably have the most to say. It turns out there's a movie called Mission to Mars.
Captain Jim McConnell and his crew are about to discover on Mars the origin of life on Earth.
Somebody put that thing there, it's not us. That DNA looks human.
And begin the greatest adventure of their lives.
What are we here for, if not to take chances?
Mission to Mars, rated PG.
Yeah, I've heard of that, yeah.
It came out in the year 2000.
Okay.
Starred Gary Sinise and Don Cheadle.
Yes. Yep.
And apparently in 1955, Disneyland had a ride called Rocket to the Moon.
Okay.
That later became Flight to the Moon, and then it became Mission to Mars.
Okay.
And then it actually shut down, and they retroactively turned the ride into a different ride called the Extraterrestrial Alien Encounter.
Terrestrial?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of clever.
Well, it seems, I guess the history of this ride's fairly complicated. At one point, it was meant to be like a way to bring in the Alien series into Disney, but it they ended up like connecting the dots to make it work.
Yeah, wow. Oh my
So
goodness.
I have done the extraterrestrial alien encounter.
Okay.
I remember because before you go in, there's a robot voiced by Tim Curry. And there's this little alien inside a tube.
Oh man.
And it's meant to demonstrate this like teleportation technology they're using
Yeah,
to move this alien. But when it mutates the little alien to like a scary alien.
Right.
And then you go into this room where you're sitting down, and it's one of those like sensory experiences, and there's this alien, and then this tube. It was very scary for me as a 12-year-old.
Oh wow. But man, I have robot voiced by Tim Curry. Oh, count me in. That sounds good. Just on that alone, I would go to that ride. Is the ride still functioning today?
From what I can tell here, it looks like it is now a restaurant. Like that space is now a restaurant. Maybe I'm reading this incorrectly, but it looks like this ride might not be functioning anymore.
What a fascinating history. That's like, oh, it changes this and that, and then it becomes a restaurant.
Well, it goes to show, right? Like in the 50s, like just getting to the moon was kind of like the big thing, and then once it's like, well, now we're on the moon, so that's not very interesting. So they had to keep trying to advance it to do more and more and more. So
wow.
So this movie, Mission to Mars, was. It was a very, I guess, loose adaptation of the ride.
Yeah, of
You can
course.
almost argue this is just basically an adaptation of the concept of going to Mars, really.
Well, exactly. I feel like it isn't every adaptation of a ride more or less a loose adaptation, because there's only so much that you can take from the ride, and there's still so much else that you still have to create.
But I feel like this is like unlike some of the other ones we'll mention, this is like very generic.
Okay.
You know, it's like this is just people going to space.
Okay.
And I've never seen this film, so I don't really remember it happening, to be honest.
Yeah, me neither. I think my dad owns it. My dad has like a collection of sci-fi movies on DVD and Blu-ray, and I think he has this one. I think, I looked at it at one point. I'm like, maybe one day I'll watch it, but I don't think it has a great rating on IMDb, so I'm not in any like huge rush to check it out, but I have heard of it.
All right, second, we're going to talk about another kind of obscure one. This is a TV movie called Tower of Terror.
Yes, I've heard of this one.
Am I late for the party? Abby? Thank you for the present. I love it. And thank you, Buzzy.
Happy birthday, Abby. Hey. You know what this means, don't you?
Heard of it, so you haven't seen it either.
I haven't, but now I'm kind of curious because,
So it turns out that in the 1950s, they basically had for Disney MGM Studios, they did a collaboration with the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
For this Tower of Terror. So it was like this, and it was it was the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror.
Oh, that's great.
And I've never been to Disneyland, so I've never seen this thing, and I think I've seen this on TV before because like Steve Guttenberg and a young Kirsten Dunst are in the movie.
Yeah.
But obviously, because it was made for Disney television, it didn't use the Twilight Zone stuff at all.
Right, of course.
They kind of divorced it from that source material.
Yep, that's fair.
So this is another one we're just gonna. I don't have anything to say about this. Does it look interesting to you? Have you
yeah, kind of. I mean, at some point I might give it a watch. It's interesting how Kirsten Dunst, for example, like we know her from the Spider-Man movies and like Bring It On, a whole bunch of other movies as either like a teenager or an adult. But like she did a lot of movies as a kid, like Small Soldiers and was Interview with the Vampire. This one, so I guess
she was in. No, I'm thinking of Scarlett Johansson. Never mind.
Okay, but and I mean, and the only other thing I have to say is that I imagine if you were to ask people like name one Disney ride or one Disney park attraction, I feel like Tower of Terror has got to be up there for like being the most famous, because even though I've never been on it, like anyone that has been on it, of course, will like tell you about it and how intense it was. So I think it's a pretty famous one.
But this is an example, I would say, of like a Disney park concept that would be a good idea for a movie. It's like a haunted hotel that is in Hollywood. Great.
Exactly.
You could write any number of stories.
Yep. There you go.
Just with that setting.
Yeah.
Whereas the whole Mission to Mars thing, it's like,
yeah,
it's just the Mission to Mars.
That's right. Yeah, that's it. That's all.
But all right, we're gonna start talking about the ones that are actually like Disney attractions that people know as Disney attractions that were made into big movies.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start talking about Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
What if there was a place where nothing was impossible? Where you could build whatever you're crazy enough to imagine. A place where you could actually change the world. You want to go? Buckle up! Tomorrowland.
This was an opening attraction at Disneyland back in 1955, and the section of the parks kind of like evolved over time as you know, because it was meant to represent the world of tomorrow and be futuristic and whatnot. And so, of course, as our actual technology gets more and more advanced, they have to keep updating Tomorrowland to be more representative of the future.
Right, yeah.
I remember this is where Space Mountain is, and I remember riding Space Mountain.
Yep.
And they've started to incorporate elements of like, you know, Buzz Lightyear and and Lilo and Stitch and Monsters Inc. and like more like, I guess, sci-fi elements.
That's cool. I
to
like that.
Tomorrowland to make it more sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, like, this Tomorrowland movie was directed by Brad Bird.
Yep.
Director I love.
Yes, me too. He's awesome.
The movie came out in 2015, I believe.
Yep.
And to be honest, I never saw it.
No?
I saw the trailer, and I'm like, I have no idea what this movie's about.
So I saw the movie, and I think, you see, it's kind of unfortunate because I think it bombed just a little bit. I don't think it made that much money. Unfortunately, I think in the third act, there's kind of you know how sometimes in movies you're not 100% sure what the point is. You know, like there's a threat, characters are like racing towards to try and save the day, and then you kind of get this big reveal towards the end about like, here's really what's going on. I think when Tomorrowland is story-wise, when it got there, it just seemed a little like basic, right? It's like this is what we've been kind of, you know, getting to. Like this is it. Like, okay, like it just wasn't that exciting. But beyond that, I still like the movie. I still liked Raffi Cassidy is like the young girl who, I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, so I won't say it. But anyways, she's really good in the movie. Britt Robertson and George Clooney both have a lot of scenes together. They work a lot in the movie. They have a great banter back and forth because George Clooney, you know, is kind of the older guy who's just, you know, like he's had it with adventure and like trying to do new things. So he's like, no, I'm just going to stay retired here. But Britt Robertson needs his help, so they go on this adventure together. The score by Michael Giacchino, who, is a name you've probably heard before, and he's scored a lot of movies.
He's great.
He is. He like the score for this movie kind of gives you that feel of, you know, like some of the scores for like E.T. and Jurassic Park, where like you just get this sense of wonder and magic when you hear that music. For me, that was the music of Tomorrowland. I really liked the score, and I still had a good time with it, despite how it like fell apart a little bit towards the end.
I heard it was boring. That was the biggest criticism I heard of the movie, and I was like, well, I don't want to watch a boring movie.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure it's a little more than 2 hours long, so it's not a short movie exactly, but I don't know. Like, you know, if you love Brad Bird like I do, I'd still, like, I have it on Blu-ray. If you want, I'll lend it to you.
Okay, it's the only Brad Bird movie that I know of that I haven't seen. So.
I'd say check it out, but I liked it. I know a lot of people didn't, but I enjoyed it still, which I saw at the theaters.
I'm glad you bought the Blu-ray, because apparently Disney lost $140 million on this film.
Yeah, I see. I tried to support it.
So just to talk briefly, so like all I remember from the trailer is there some girl picks up a coin.
Yes.
And she just appears in a different location.
That's right.
And it looks like she's in this futuristic city. So
yep.
Does the movie kind of like suggest that this is some film set in the future?
Oh, geez. So,
or is it more complicated than that?
See, I thought pretty good. I saw it in theaters when it first came out. Now it's been more than 4 years. So I don't think it's, it might be. It's been a few years since I've seen it, so I can't remember.
It's exactly. So boring you don't remember.
No, it's not because it's boring. It's scared me specifically about that question. Remember, I'm sleep deprived here. That's why I can't. That's why comment is still loading. But yeah, no, that part about it is really cool. And yeah, if I had to guess, so I don't think it's more complicated than that. I think it's just basically when you have that special token, you are transported to Tomorrowland. But once again, I'm sure you'll watch the movie soon, Joe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
All right, well, let's talk about something that I also found to be a huge bore.
Okay.
2000's Dinosaur.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So
Dinosaur. Rated PG.
Stand together!
Apparently, when Animal Kingdom opened in 1998, Countdown to Extinction was one of the two rides.
Right.
And essentially the world, you're being chased by dinosaurs or whatever.
Yeah.
The world of that ride was then used for the 2000 film Dinosaur, which I just remember seeing it as a kid, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I was too young for it. It just felt dull and boring.
So, on a bit of a side note, I remember going to see Toy Story 2 in theaters in November 1999 before Dinosaur had come out. And they showed a trailer for Dinosaur. And to this day, it's still one of my favorite trailers because instead of doing the typical, like, in a world, dinosaurs, this and that, and then soon a threat will come and our hero has to face the enemy and all that, they just showed the first 4 minutes of the movie. They no title cards, like it just said like from Disney. And then so as a kid, I'm watching this trailer, which I think, of course, I'm confusing it as Toy Story 2. I'm like, why are there dinosaurs in Toy Story 2? This is really weird. But then, of course, they get to the end of the opening clip of the trailer, and then you see Dinosaur pop up, and then they finally got to the movie. But anyways, I still remember. I don't remember that much about the actual movie. I think I liked it as a kid, but that trailer, man, oh man, did that leave a mark on me. And I remember just telling my parents, I was like, there were dinosaurs. I didn't know if it was part of Toy Story or not. But I think it's a great trailer that you just kind of get thrown into this world where like the egg travels from one place to the next. And then finally, I guess it gets to is it the lemurs? Are those the animals that they...
I can't even remember. Honestly, I remember seeing it once on home video. And that's all I can remember, this movie Dinosaur.
Yeah. So I think the movie's fine from what I remember, but really it's the trailer that I will never, ever forget. I love the trailer so much.
Let's talk about an attraction/movie that I personally find very enjoyable as a movie. And I enjoyed it when I saw it as an attraction.
All right.
The Country Bears.
Oh.
Well, are you going to find him?
Does he have any distinguishing marks?
Yeah, he's got thick brown hair all over his body.
On Disney DVD and video, one boy is searching for what he's been missing and discovering what he's had all along.
Who's that little bear?
Oh, that's no little bear. That's my brother. Yeah!
Disney's The Country Bear.
So the Country Bear Jamboree opened alongside Magic Kingdom in 1971.
Okay.
So when that park was opened in Orlando, the Country Bear Jamboree was one of the original attractions. And to this day, it's still there. And it's a bunch of animatronic bears singing country music. And it's super like hokey, cheesy, but I love it.
Yeah.
You know, they kind of make fun of it in a Goofy movie when they go to that possum theme park and there's the animal robot attraction
that's
thing
right.
there.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. Wow.
And it's funny because by the time my family had actually made the trip down to Disney World, this Country Bears movie had come out. So I was familiar with the ride because of the movie. And, you know, I was, how old was I? 11 years old when Country Bears came out.
Yep.
I don't remember seeing it in theaters, but I do remember having the VHS. And I had a fun time with this movie. Like, I know some people hate it, but it's so funny. Like, you got Christopher Walken in there.
Yes.
And you got Diedrich Bader and that other guy as the funny cops. And you got that one kind of balding guy who's in all those movies as someone's dad or the teacher.
Oh, yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
And they got these people in these like actual bear costumes that look, I mean, they look kind of creepy, but at the same time, it's like, I'd rather have something actually on screen than just a CGI recreation. Like, you know, if you compare this to like the Yogi Bear movie that came out in 2010.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. They didn't rely on CGI, that they had these animatronic bear costumes. Yeah.
And I remember when I did see the attraction, like the ride, or the Jamboree, I was disappointed because none of the characters in the movie are in the Country Bear Jamboree because
of course,
like most of these things, they don't actually take the characters from the attraction.
Right.
They kind of just took the concept and did something new with it.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say like, oh, the movie is very 2002. Like it feels like a movie that came out in 2002, especially with like a lot of the choices for the music and and whatnot. But I don't know, man. I have a grand old time with the Country Bears movie.
No, that's totally fair. Just because a movie might not be like objectively good or you know, like one that is considered of good quality. There are lots of bad movies that I love that I will still enjoy and defend to a certain extent, even though they might not be well made. For Country Bears, I don't think I ever saw the attraction, but I do remember seeing it in theaters. I remember seeing advertisements for it, and I begged my mom. I was like, I want to go see this Country Bears movie. It's like bears that play, banjos and guitars and whatnot. They play country music. And I was like, yeah, this looks cool. I want to check this out. And I don't remember how I feel about the movie. I'm sure it's okay. I'm sure it's somewhat enjoyable. But Nostalgia Critic, who I basically follow religiously, I'll watch all of his new reviews. And he did a review for Country Bears earlier this year, I think. And it was pretty funny because a lot of the comments he made were about Christopher Walken's just really weird, strange performance. So yeah, it was fun to kind of revisit the movie through that lens. And yeah, I think at the end of the day, Nostalgia Critic said the movie's not very good, but it's still quirky and it's still funny. So I think he saw, what you see in it too.
Yeah, I'll go up the bat for this movie. I don't think it's actually as bad as people say it is.
Okay.
It's very, I guess, cookie cutter in the sense it's like every other kind of music movie. It's like, gotta get the band back together.
Of course,
it certainly follows, there's nothing groundbreaking with the story, but I don't think it's as terrible as people will say. And
okay.
I think the intentional comedy, the unintentional comedy, there's a scene where they go to Elton John's house.
Yeah,
and they think that Elton John is his gardener.
Yeah.
And they're just like, that was Elton John. They're like, no, it wasn't. I find that hilarious.
Yeah. No, exactly.
He's like, you guys, the Country Bears, and they're like, yeah. And just this idea that there's this world where there's these anthropomorphic bears are like a rock band, and everyone's okay with it. Just these these human-sized bears walking around talking to people. It's like as if they're just normal people.
Which, you know what? To be fair, that's actually kind of a funny idea, and I think they actually play off that idea in the Paddington movies as well, which I saw earlier this year, where. Because think about it, there are a lot of movies where an anthropomorphic animal or creature or whatnot meets these humans, they freak out, and that's like an unavoidable part of the story is that they keep on freaking out that they can talk and do all these things. So it is actually kind of funny that the Country Bears go to Elton John's house, and Elton John, like you said, is like, oh, it's the Country Bears. It's like, oh, business as usual. I think that is kind of funny that you just ignore that completely story-wise, and they're like, they exist in this world and people accept that. Moving on.
And then there's that scene where Christopher Walken is he has all these wooden models of the Country Bear Hall, and he over and over again he's like pushing a button, this giant weight comes down and smashing, and he keeps going, oh no, Country Bear Hall.
Yes, right.
Just over. It's
man,
I find it hilarious.
So I'll have to revisit it. It's maybe with my son when he's old enough. We're like, hey, want to see some big bears play some country music? You're gonna love it.
Okay, here's a movie that came out the year after Country Bears, or shortly after.
I think I know which one you're gonna say.
The Haunted Mansion.
Yep.
Walt Disney Pictures welcomes you to the Gracie Manor.
Hello? Do you believe in ghosts?
How's that? Stay calm.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
Disagree.
Be brave.
No time to panic.
What would be a good time to?
Now stop panicking.
And don't lose your head.
That's something you don't see every day.
Eddie Murphy.
Dark spirits lift us.
Hey, I'd really rather stay on the ground. Can I stay on the ground, please?
Disney's The Haunted Mansion.
So, The Haunted Mansion opened at Disneyland in 1969, and it was the first major project that was undertaken after Walt Disney's death.
Okay.
So that's significant, of course.
Yeah.
Since I haven't been to Disneyland, I don't know what it's like as an attraction.
Me neither.
But I can assume it's a very, like any haunted house type of thing. It's very experiential, and you check out different places and different things happen.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's some narrative that explains why the place is haunted, that they either the waiting area or the actual walking through the attraction gives you that feel.
Yeah.
The movie, it came out, November 2003, starring Eddie Murphy. And I'll be honest, I've seen like half of it.
Yeah.
I think it was on TV once. I saw the trailers for it when it was coming out, and I was like, I'm not a big enough fan of like family-friendly horror or Eddie Murphy to give this my time.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it until it was on TV. And I just remember that Jennifer Tilly's the voice of like the green-headed woman inside the, and that Wallace Shawn's like a ghost in it. Those are the only three things I remember about the movie.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I've never seen the movie. I really have no intention. I like Eddie Murphy, and he has done some good movies. It's just unfortunate that he's done movies like this that just, like aren't that good. I watched the Nostalgia Critic review of this because I guess he tends to pick on Disney properties where the movies like didn't turn out that well, so it's kind of easier to make fun of. But yeah, unless I'm hanging out with someone and they're like, Haunted Mansion is my favorite movie, you need to sit down and watch this with me. If they don't say that, I'm not going to go search for this myself because there are just too many other movies that I'm interested in seeing. So yeah, it's a pass for me.
Do you think there could have been a good Haunted Mansion movie? Like, it's a scary concept, but then they put a comedian in there to like kind of, I guess, lead the way. It's like he's the central character we're experiencing all this through.
Yeah, if film has taught me anything in all my years of watching movies, it's that some movies that you expect to be bad or not that great or have difficulties with certain parts of the story or characters, you'd be surprised that all it takes is like one gifted filmmaker and ideally taking their time and really trying to figure out what's the best way to tell this story. I highly doubt that Haunted Mansion was one of those movies where they're like, guys, we need to get this right. I think it was just, let's make a Haunted Mansion movie. Let's have Eddie Murphy. People will come and see it. And I think it's possible, but I imagine, and once again, like that's the tricky thing about doing a movie based on a theme park attraction is that in a way you have more work to do because you have the attraction, but it's not like you have a treasure trove of like, 80 pages of notes of all these cool things that we can incorporate into the story. It's like you have the theme park attraction and that's it.
Well, apparently many iconic settings and scenes from the ride were put into the film.
Okay.
And they went as far as to like, they had the Dapper Dans who are like these like, this quartet that shows up at Disney stuff.
Yeah.
They had them as the voice of these 4 busts, like head busts that sing.
Oh, that's cool.
So it seems like there was a bit of like love and care put into trying to make this a faithful recreation of the experience, but they tacked on the family comedy plot of Eddie Murphy's shenanigans as well. And as we'll discuss shortly, I think when they lean into the kind of the scary parts of the source material, you can find success. So I think a Haunted Mansion movie could work. It's just that the maybe the audience should be skewed a little higher,
Yeah, and then remember, like for every good movie that's been made, typically there are a lot of right decisions that have to be made, right? Because if the filmmakers, like they can try as hard as they want, but if they keep on making bad decisions about how things should move ahead and how certain things work in the story and the characters and the visual design and all that, that's why I would imagine like a fair amount of movies don't work sometimes is because the right decisions aren't being made. But yeah, I think any bad movie, there's a possibility for it to have been a good movie. Sometimes you just need certain variables. You need more time. You need maybe the right people to be able to do that. And yeah, sometimes they don't have the right combination.
Sorry, we're finally here. we're going to talk about Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
From producer Jerry Bruckheimer on July 9th, the pirates are coming.
Let's start believing in ghost stories. You're in one.
Johnny Depp, Jeffrey Rush, Orlando Bloom, and Keira Knightley in a Gore Verbinski film.
That's interesting.
Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl.
You like pain? Try wearing a corset.
Starts July 9th.
So the attraction opened in 1967, and apparently it's referred to as Walt Disney's magnum opus because it was the last project he worked on for the parks before he passed away.
Okay.
So like Jungle Book was the last movie he worked on before he passed away. This was the last attraction for Disneyland that was made before he died. And very similarly, by the time that I got to ride the attraction at the theme park, I had seen the movie.
Yes.
And just like the Country Bears, there's really nothing that's in the attraction that is directly ported over into the film.
If I remember correctly, though, because I own the first movie and I watched through the bonus material, I think when they go to Tortuga, Will Turner and Jack Sparrow, there's one camera shot of, like the pirates being drunk and going around and this and that, just seeing some craziness of like the late night shenanigans. I think that's meant to be an homage to the ride. But yeah, beyond that, I think, everything else is just completely kind of created from scratch.
Okay. Because I was very impressed with the ride. Like, it is, according the Disneyland version is 17 minutes long from the time you get in the boat till the time you leave.
Is it really?
Yeah, I don't remember it being that long when I saw into it in Orlando, but it was definitely one of the longer things.
That's awesome.
But it was also like a great feat of animatronics because you're in a boat, and on the other side of the cave you're in, you see pirates doing pirate stuff.
Yeah,
and they looked as if they were actually people doing these things. And I think it's also interesting, like, for Disney, you have to imagine 1967 at this point, I don't know if they had even started making live action films yet.
Yeah.
But for them to decide, hey, we're going to have this attraction in our theme park that's going to be pirates and skulls and people being drunk, I think that was a very bold choice for the mouse.
No, that's fair. And just a quick fact, if I remember correctly, Mary Poppins was released in 1964. So I think they'd started getting into live action stuff in the 60s.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But I don't think they'd been doing it for 20 years. I think they were just kind of getting into it. But yes, no, I think the animatronic stuff is so cool. And I'm pretty sure I did go to the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction well before I saw the movie. And I think you just, once again, you look at it in awe and wonder. And you like really, you're wondering like how did they do this? How did they make this happen? But it is really cool. I like, as amazing as roller coasters can be, I think there's something to be said about the slower rides where things happen and you're kind of looking around, right? And it's this completely immersive experience where something might be happening and you catch it, but someone else might be looking elsewhere, right? And I'm pretty sure I remember telling my brothers, like, hey guys, look over here. Oh wow, what's that? Oh cool. Like, we're just all looking around because there's lots to look at. There isn't just one, oh, here's the pirate that clearly everyone should be looking at. There's just lots to look at. It is a really cool attraction.
So the film Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl came out in 2003. Apparently it has the esteemed privilege of being the first movie with a PG-13 rating released by Walt Disney Pictures.
Yeah, I think so.
Because the PG-13 rating was created in like the late 80s, early 90s. So it took them a good 10, 12, 13 years to get to making a movie that warranted that rating.
Yep.
And this is where I bring up the thing about Haunted Mansion again, because if anything, Pirates of the Caribbean shows that you can have a movie that comes out with Disney's name on it and be scary and be successful. Like, Pirates of the Caribbean did not destroy their reputation of being family friendly.
That's right.
But it really leaned into the horror, kind of like the zombie culture almost.
That's right.
With the way it portrays all the dead pirates.
Yes. Yeah, I think there's something to be said about the fact that Pirates of the Caribbean, while it was PG-13 and a bit more intense and whatnot, that it's one of those things where if there was a line that Disney should not cross when it comes to their entertainment, that maybe they got a little closer to that line with something like Pirates of the Caribbean, but they still didn't cross it, right? I mean, imagine like a Pirates of the Caribbean movie or like another movie made by Disney that was like R-rated and like had all sorts of, stuff that warrants R-rated movies. I would say that's crossing the line. That's too much. Like, that's definitely a far cry from their family entertainment. But it is funny that, like a PG-13 movie like Pirates of the Caribbean, like most of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, for the most part, like, there are still families that go to see them. Maybe not with like toddlers that are 3 years old, but I mean, even like some kids that are like 7 or 8 years old and kind of see PG-13 movies here and there. Like, it's still kind of a family ordeal. You just wouldn't bring your toddlers to it. Exactly. You'd bring the kids that are a little older. So yeah, it's interesting that there was probably a risk there, but it obviously paid off.
Yeah. And the movie itself, like, again, I don't remember seeing it in theaters. I do remember seeing the second and the third in theaters.
Yeah.
And after that, I stopped watching the movies.
Yeah, I didn't see the first in theaters, but then I remember how much it blew up and everyone was saying, like, oh, have you seen Pirates of the Caribbean? I'm like, no. So I finally got to sit down with my friend and watched it, and there was so much hype around it, but I really enjoyed it. I still enjoy it to this day. I've seen it at least a few times. And while I didn't see the first in theaters, I saw the second, third, fourth, and fifth.
Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you waste time going to see those other ones?
Well, because for me, I'm a completionist. Like, I'll literally watch like mostly any movie. There are a few exceptions, but part of it too is because I think for the fifth one, like, my family, they just wanted to go see a movie, and they're like, Pirates of the Caribbean 5. And you know what? For me, like, It's okay. It's not great. It's not awful either. There are a few things that I do like about it, but it was a family thing, so I'm not going to be like, no, I'm sorry. I'm going to see Pirates of the Caribbean, even if I'm not expecting it to be a good time. But it just goes to show that I missed the first one, seeing that in theaters, but I haven't missed any of the other ones.
Well, just for right now, let's focus on the first film, because this is technically the one that's based on the attraction.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones arguably are just sequels to this first film.
Exactly.
What I find interesting about the first Pirates of the Caribbean is that Jack Sparrow is not necessarily the main character. He is he's really a supporting character, right? Like, he doesn't come in until like a half hour into the movie.
I guess so.
Well, he isn't really. Like, you think if he comes in, he's like, he's certainly, and this is I would say, problem with all the other Pirates movies.
Mm-hmm.
In the first film, he's a great supporting character, and he's along for the ride, and you're interested. He's like the genie in Aladdin. Maybe that's a bad example because he.
You know what? Actually, that's a great example.
Well, no, because the genie overtakes the main leads of. But I guess that is what happens in Pirates.
Well, that's the thing, though. I was going to say, if I'm to entertain this idea that he's just a supporting character, he clearly steals the show because. Yeah, he is so memorable, right? Like, talk about a great performance. Like, Johnny Depp got nominated
for
an
Oscar.
Exactly, yeah. So that's got to say something about like a actor doing a performance of a pirate based on a theme park attraction and then getting nominated for an Oscar. Yeah, that's got to mean something.
Man, if I could get an Oscar nomination for just pretending to be Keith Richards.
Yeah,
which is what he did.
Basically,
to the point where they cast Keith Richards as his father in one of the future movies.
Yeah. But no, I like the genie, Jack Sparrow. That's actually, I'd never thought about that before, but I do like it because even though they're both ultimately supporting characters, they both steal the show. So
because
I like that.
In Curse of the Black Pearl, really the story is about Will and Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And the antagonist is Barbossa and these pirates, and they're after the blood of the person that'll cure them.
Yeah.
And Jack Sparrow kind of swings into the movie as like, hey, da, 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 da,
that's right. Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
That's right.
And then he like the plot is never centered around him. He's there. He's like he's a main character, but I would say he's like, lower on the call sheet. if you want to say it that way, in terms of the importance of the story.
Yeah.
In terms of star power at this point,
right.
Maybe he was the biggest star. I don't know.
I think so, but no, I see what you mean though. That instead of him being the main driving force, in a way, like he's kind of there as like the assist, right? He's like, let me help you get to where you have to go. I may betray you, I may not. Let's see what happens. Who knows? It'll be a fun ride.
Yeah. So I appreciate about the first film. Like, there's enough Jack Sparrow that I don't feel like he's too much.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just it was scary. It was like creepy enough that it like you say, it approached that line without crossing it.
Yeah.
And it just was good adventure, and then that Hans Zimmer score, it's just like,
yes. Oh man. I love the first movie. I think it is genuinely great. And the great thing about it is that it's just a fun swashbuckling adventure, right? Because if I remember correctly, I don't think we had that many pirate movies until Pirates of the Caribbean came along, and of course brought interest back into the public's eye about like, oh, pirates are cool. Let's see more about pirates.
And then they made Pan.
That's right. And unfortunately, yeah. But I mean, there've been some. From what I remember, some decent pirate movies since then, but it's very entertaining, right? It's like all the performances are good, the visual effects are great, the music's great. It's one of those movies that you kind of forget about time passing, and by the time it's over, you're like, yeah, I'd watch another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and you're in luck because they made 4 more after that.
And that's the thing, like they did, the first one did so incredibly well that they basically greenlit more movies.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, I went to the ride kind of expecting, let's see everything from the movie. And of course, it's like nothing like the movie.
Yeah.
Outside of making, like you said, eluding some kind of moments from the attraction.
Yeah.
It's basically like they created it all from scratch.
Yep.
Almost to the point where you're like, well, did this even, I guess they were just really cashing on the name Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
They didn't really need to be based on that attraction because they were able to come up with an original story and characters and all the stuff that makes the movie good on their own. They're just porting over the name that people are familiar with.
Exactly, yeah. And I guess what helps too is that I think at the time, a lot of people were starting to know who Orlando Bloom was because of the Lord of the Rings movies. Because remember, Pirates of the Caribbean came out in 2003, so by that point, we had already seen 2 Lord of the Rings movies. And I know anyone that I talked to...
I hadn't seen
them. Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, yeah, most people had. And people would always kind of quickly talk about Legolas, right? So I think it helped his star power that he was in the movie. And then Jack Sparrow had already done a whole bunch of Tim Burton movies by the time that he was in
Jack
Pirates of the
Sparrow
Caribbean.
had done them.
Right, that's right. Yeah, Jack Sparrow.
We want to refer to him as Jack Sparrow because the actor in question, Johnny Depp, is not as popular anymore.
That's Captain Johnny Depp to you. But anyways, yeah, that's right. But no, Johnny Depp. So I think both of them had a bit of star power by the time the Pirates of the Caribbean movie came out. So I think that certainly helped. It helped its cause.
I suppose there's actually controversy around this because in 2006 they actually decided to start putting Jack Sparrow and some of the other characters from the movies in the attractions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I heard about that.
So I guess like Disney park purists were like, "What are you doing, invading?"
That's right. Yeah, get that out of there.
But granted, like the next time I go to Disney and I go do Pirates, I'm gonna enjoy seeing the characters from the movies in there because it's just like, it's expanding the lore and whatever.
Exactly. There are some things like some popular properties that whether you see the show or you see the movie or whatnot. Like, it's hard to go to something like, I would imagine, the Pirates of the Caribbean theme park attraction and not think about the movie. Unless you just, you don't watch movies, but you go to Disney World. I imagine, it's on your mind, so I can see why they would do that.
So here's my hot take on the other ones.
Okay.
The second one, Dead Man's Chest, and the third one, At World's End, were written and clearly created, like they were shot back to back. They were intended to be like, oh, this first movie was really great, but we didn't really actually set it up for any sequels, so we're just going to create one story that will turn this one film into a trilogy.
Right, of course.
And we'll write basically a 2-part movie.
Yeah.
Where essentially the 2 parts are so intertwined that people are going to go see them both.
Yeah.
Like they were released a year apart.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have the first one kind of like, actually this is probably where Infinity War got the idea, is like have the first one on this huge cliffhanger that then leads people to come back a year later for the next one.
Yep.
And the big mistake they made is they made Jack Sparrow the main character. He became the central character in those sequels. Like the whole plot revolved around what Jack Sparrow was doing and what Jack Sparrow wanted and what people wanted from Jack Sparrow.
Yep.
And all of a sudden the people who were the main characters in the first film, well, they've resolved the whole thing with the blood and the child of the whatever.
Right, yeah.
So now they're just kind of roped into his story, and then they made it way too complicated.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I hear you on the complicated bit. I was watching something before Dead Men Tell No Tales when the 5th one came out, how they did a recap for the first 4 movies, and they were even having a hard time trying to make sense of everything, and they explain all these complicated things, and they're like, you got it? Hopefully you do. Moving on. So I get that.
And then the 4th one and the 5th one, even though actually that's not true. I did watch the 4th one when I was working a job at a youth center.
Yeah.
But it was because this was years after it came out. Anyway, this doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Point is, those are mostly just Jack Sparrow spin-offs.
Right.
Like they're not even. You talk about like the root of this as being a Pirates of the Caribbean series, and then you have the 2 sequels that were still Pirates of the Caribbean, but Jack Sparrow was given more screen time, more emphasis.
Yeah.
And then 4 and 5 were basically, okay, now these are Jack Sparrow spin-off movies that still have the name Pirates of the Caribbean, but really he and Barbossa are like the Gibbs guy who's in all these movies.
Right.
Are the only ones who are returning.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I can understand that. For me, the way I'd sum it up quickly is the second one I like. I think the highlight for me are the action set pieces. I think
wheel?
So like the wheel, the 3-way sword fight, the ball, the big ball that the pirates are caught in. I think that's great. The Kraken's cool. The third one, I'm sorry, it's just pretty forgettable and boring and long. I don't remember much about it. I saw it in theaters and I was like, yep, I'm good. 4th one I thought was a slight step up. I thought it was all right. And then 5th one, I'd say about the same as the 3rd one, kind of forgettable and boring and long and this and that.
So of all these movies we've been talking about that are based on Disney park attractions, Curse of the Black Pearl is most likely the best one.
Absolutely.
Country Bears would be my personal second favorite.
And then for me would be Tomorrowland, easily.
Really? So despite all the commentary that it's boring, you're still going to defend it and say it's not?
I will. I didn't think it was boring. I mean, I think, like I said, there's a issue with the big reveal that happens towards the end. I still had a great time. There was still lots of stuff that I like about it.
Okay. So there you go. I'm trying to think, are there any Disney attractions that have not been made into a movie yet that I want to see as a movie?
I'd have to look at a whole bunch.
Should this concept just be retired?
Well, yes and no, right? Because if we were to get another, like, imagine if Jungle Cruise is an awesome movie. And then could it be like the successor to Pirates of the Caribbean, where it's like, guys, we need to get more theme park attractions and turn them into movies? You never know, because there are plenty of movies that people will pass off and think that they're not going to be good, and they end up surprising you. So who knows what the future holds?
And to be fair, as I just said with Pirates of the Caribbean, all they're really taking from the attraction is the name.
Exactly, yeah.
If they can do what they did with Curse of the Black Pearl and create an entirely original story with interesting characters and just make a good movie that happens to carry over the branding from an attraction, maybe that's what Jungle Cruise will do.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe there's some other attraction that you guys are like screaming at the computer right now being like, they should make a movie based on this thing.
Yeah.
All I have to say, I would agree with you. Maybe there is something to this that isn't quite dead yet. Since maybe eventually Disney's going to run out of animated films to do live action versions of.
Yeah, exactly.
So they'll have to either start like doing wholly, like entirely original content again. Or they'll just have to cycle through all their theme park attractions again.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny that we have like a group of, I guess, like 10 or 15 movies that have been made from theme park attractions. Just goes to show ideas can come from literally anywhere.
Of all the ones that have been made here and we talked about that were bad, is there one you'd want to have it get a second chance, like a remake?
Maybe Dinosaur, possibly. I mean, it's been years since I've seen it, right? So I may go back to it. I may still like it. But I'm not sure. I'd have to kind of revisit them. But I can see why a lot of these theme park movies go from okay to bad because, like, once again, it's like they don't have, like, a lot of what they're taking is... Like they have all these new ideas that they have to add to like the existing ride, which is a few minutes long. So yeah, I'm not sure.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Have you enjoyed this conversation about Disney attractions that turned into theme parks? Wait, let us know what you think. Yeah. Did you enjoy this conversation where we talked about Disney attractions that turned into movies? Are there movies that are based on theme parks we forgot? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Let us know what you think, because once again, we have no mail.
Oh.
So Ben the Movie Buff, you need to remind the people how they can find us. They need to just like put the Bat Jar podcast as a contact in their phones. Put us as a bookmark on your internet browser. I don't know, whatever you do to get to contacting people, because anyway, tell them how to do it.
I will. All right, listen up, guys. If you want to contact the show with a question or an idea for an episode, you can send us an email to
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
We are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our posts on Facebook and make sure to like our page because we want everyone to join us inside the Bat Jar.
And there's no lineup for the Bat Jar like Disney World or Disneyland. You just come right up and get right in with us.
That's right. Yep. The lines are practically non-existent.
Yeah. No admission to get in either. That's nice.
Indeed.
We do have a YouTube channel where you can subscribe, join the notification squad if you like listening to podcasts on YouTube while you're at work or studying. And of course, Ben the Movie Buff, you have a YouTube channel as well that people can go and find.
That's correct. It's still been a few months since I posted anything, but I have so many ideas for episodes, and hopefully in the next week or so, when I have a few days off, I will try and work on something. I just have so many ideas, and I got to try and get to them one at a time. So, if you're interested in movie talk about old movies and new movies, I like to do lists sometimes, too, and talk about my favorite movies of a given genre or collection. Look up Ben the Movie Buff on YouTube. I think I'm like 7 or 8 subscribers away from 100. So, if you guys could help me out with that, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of YouTubers who are also podcasters basically just do like conversations with their podcast host, and they just turn that into a video essay. So, if you ever need something quick, I'm always ready to just talk about anything. So
awesome. Thank you, Joe. Average Joe. I really appreciate it. And I will take you up on that one day.
So now it's time to go into the Bat Jar and find out what we're going to talk about next time. So Ben the Movie Buff, it's up to you to
all right,
pull something out of the jar here.
I hope it's something that I don't like, just because if it is something I like, I'm going to feel bad about missing out on it. But I hope it's something that you like and I don't like. Because last time when I pulled up
anything you like that I don't like,
possibly. Well, I mean, Yeah, we'd have to talk about it afterwards. I just know when I picked out Doctor Who a few weeks ago, I was like, oh, I'd want to be on this episode so bad.
Oh yeah,
so,
that was a good time last week.
Okay, yeah, this is. I'll skip out on. Well, I mean, no. I picked out the Wizarding World of Harry Potter.
Oh man. Okay. Well,
so I guess that's one thing we kind of disagree on. I mean, I'd be down to chat about it, but you got it, and I'm working next week, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate Harry Potter. I've seen most of the movies. I've read a lot of the books. We did an episode with your brother about the Harry Potter books.
Yes, that's right. I remember that. Yeah.
So, if anyone wants to do some homework in anticipation for next week's episode, feel free to go back and listen to our episode we did with Tiny Tim about the Harry Potter book series. Because next week we're going to dive into the kind of like the lore of Harry Potter more with the actual wizarding world. So, until that time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Ben the Movie Buff.
Catch you on the flip side.
See you in the next one.